Right now, I do want to pop up this live look here over the Capitol in D.C. as the House could pass legislation as early as today to end the partial government shutdown that began over the weekend. With hours left until the shutdown, President Trump and Senate Democrats were able to work out a plan that included a 2-week extension of funding for the Homeland Security Department. Now, the House does have to approve all of this, and the shutdown will end once President Trump signs it. As you can see, we are getting reaction from all sides of the aisle here. And right now, I do want to bring in Congressman Kevin Kiley, a Republican representing California's 3rd Congressional District, to share his thoughts. Thank you so much for taking the time, Congressman, to be here with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And first off, did want to start by asking you essentially about the shutdown here. What is it that you feel led to the shutdown, and what could have been done differently?
Well, we actually had bipartisan bills that passed through the House for each of these areas, including for Homeland Security. And we even had within the Homeland Security bill certain reforms and funding when it comes to immigration enforcement that have been negotiated for things like body cams and training when it comes to interactions with the public. So that made it through the House. We were on track to avoid any sort of shutdown, or at least another shutdown. But, after the tragic events in Minnesota, there was an interest on the other side of the aisle in trying to hold that up. Now, thankfully, there's been a deal reached to at least, avoid a shutdown for the next couple weeks. And so we're on it very briefly right now, but if the House is able to get this bill passed today, then it'll end without any, meaningful consequence, very much unlike the one that went on for several weeks, last year. But that means we need to pass it in the House today, and then we need to be in a position to negotiate a full year funding bill for Homeland Security within the next couple weeks.
Talking about that specifically in the Department of Homeland Security, the funding there, obviously a big topic of discussion nationwide at this point, and that's essentially what it appears was holding up the bill as we were talking about. So do you support this 2-week extension and further discussions getting underway about what to do next?
I do, absolutely. I mean, I would have preferred that we had passed the full year funding bill for Homeland Security on time, as the House did, so that we would have avoided any shutdown at all. But I think this is a fine solution to say, all right, let's give ourselves a little bit of runway here to have this larger conversation where we can reach a deal that I think will include 2 elements. Number one, the sort of reforms that I just mentioned that some have been pushing for when it comes to things like training, body cams, focusing immigration enforcement in minimally disruptive ways. And then related to that, this issue when it comes to detainers and the refusal of some jurisdictions to hand over individuals who have been committed of crimes, but instead release them into the communities. If we can find some agreement on those 2 sets of issues, then I think we'll be in a good position to pass this bill, this full year bill, before this 2 weeks expires.
One thing that House Speaker Mike Johnson has talked a lot about, he has essentially said that without any Democrat support, this can pass today in the House. Do you believe that is the case?
Well, it certainly can. I think that there will be Democrats who vote for it as well. I mean, when it comes to sort of the procedural step to get the bill on the floor, a lot of times there's a very party line element to that. But when it comes to voting on the actual bill, I think you will see Democrats and Republicans both support it, as you did the Homeland Security bill just last week when we passed it through the House.
Are you hearing any sort of impacts here from constituents in your district as the shutdown happens? Again, this is a partial government shutdown. We're in day 4. So are you hearing anything from your constituents about potential impacts?
I don't think the impacts are really there yet. I mean, there may be some, but it's certainly nothing like what we saw before when we had this terrible record shutdown last year, which was absolutely unacceptable, and I was against from the very beginning. So there's a couple reasons why you're not seeing the same sort of impacts, at least not yet. Number one is that when we ended the last shutdown, there were some things that were funded for the entirety of the year. Number two, this is just a partial shutdown, and the full year funding bills in some areas have been passed. And number three, it's just been a couple of days with the prospect that it will end today. So far, it's not any sort of catastrophe, but Congress needs to, do the work it's supposed to do, get this bill passed today, and then make sure that we get this final full year funding bill, which will be the Homeland Security bill, passed within the next 2 weeks.
My last question for you here. What about SNAP funding and that sort of situation? Where do you stand on all of that?
Yeah, so during the last shutdown, that was one of the worst things that we saw, is that the SNAP funding was not there. I actually supported legislation to say that even if we're in a shutdown, let's make sure that we still have SNAP. And actually, in the continuing resolution that ended that last shutdown, SNAP was funded for the full year. So even if we had a full-fledged shutdown right now, SNAP would still be funded for the remainder of this year. So thankfully, that very bad consequence of congressional gridlock has at least been taken off the table this time around.
Congressman Kevin Kiley, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. Anything else that you want to make sure we mention or add here before I let you go?
Yeah, well, I said after the tragic events in Minnesota that we all needed to take the temperature down. And I think you've seen some positive steps in that regard. For example, in Minnesota, you see some agreements in formation where they actually are going to be more cooperative in providing that, you're not releasing dangerous individuals into the community, but you're respecting requests from the immigration authorities to have a transfer of custody in a custodial setting. This issue has really been politicized. The term sanctuary cities, sanctuary states is used around it, but it's just a matter of common sense that it makes a lot more sense if you have someone who is here illegally and has committed a crime and is wanted by the immigration authorities, that you have a transfer of custody that occurs while that individual is detained, rather than releasing them into the community, forcing the immigration authorities to go out into the community in a way that has the highest level of risks and the highest level of disruption. And so I think that is the deal that we need to reach right now, is that there are reforms that I think make sense that we can talk about and that have bipartisan support, but those need to go along with ending this policy that makes absolutely no sense at all and endangers public safety.
Congressman Kiley, thank you so much for being here with us today. We definitely appreciate it. And of course, we'll see how everything plays out today.
Of course. Thanks very much.
And what you're looking at on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, that is the shutdown clock that has been running since all of this began at midnight on Saturday morning or Friday night, depending how you look at it. 3 days, 8 hours, 12 minutes, and 20 seconds since all of this got underway. Now, as I mentioned, we have been receiving really reaction here from all sides of the aisle. We have, of course, Republicans like House Speaker Mike Johnson. We heard earlier on in the hour from Hakeem Jeffries. I do want to play for you just some of the remarks here that we got, just a few over the past 24 hours or so.
Are you confident you'll be able to get the funding package passed this week?
Yeah, I am. I think we'll get it done by tomorrow.
You think you'll be able to adopt a rule? There are some conservatives saying they want the SAVE Act. They're not happy about it.
We all want the SAVE Act, but we also look at the reality of the numbers here, and we passed the SAVE Act twice in the House. We'll pass it again. We'll do that, but this is a funding package right now, and I don't think we need to be playing games with government funding. We still have winter storms. We got FEMA and TSA and troop pay and everything else wrapped into this, so we've got to get the job done. Republicans are serious about governing, and we'll demonstrate that. And we'll push forward our priorities on the integrity of elections. So we can do all that simultaneously, and we will. But we're going to get this job done, get the government reopened. Democrats are going to play games, and the American people can see who really cares about getting the job done.
Are you asking President Trump to call some of those conservatives who have concerns?
No.
I will be voting no on this funding package. I refuse to send another cent to Stephen Miller or Kristi Noem. They are undermining our Constitution, and the department they run is murdering American citizens in the streets. She ought to be impeached, and he ought to be fired. I think their words and actions are disgusting. I just checked social media. Neither one of them has retracted or apologized for smearing Alex Preddy or slandering him as a domestic terrorist or an assassin there to massacre law enforcement.
I mean, right now we find ourselves in the posture, as you know, Will, of having 5 appropriation bills and a continuing resolution to keep the Department of Homeland Security open. The Senate's already passed it. If the House doesn't pass it, a big portion of the federal government will be shut down. And that, in my judgment, would be top of the list, king of the hill, #1 stupid. And it would be the Republicans' fault. Not only would it be bad policy, I support the SAVE Act, but if you add it on to the bill and then the legislation, all of it has to come back to the Senate, and it doesn't pass the Senate, then we would have to go into a government shutdown, and Republicans would be blamed. Senator Thune has already promised us that he would bring up the SAVE bill separately, and that just seems to me to be the smart way to go.
And we continue to get that reaction from all over. What I want to do now is bring in Congressman Glenn Grothman. He is a Republican representing Wisconsin. Thank you so much, Congressman, for taking the time to be here. I know it is a busy day, so we appreciate it.
Always glad to be on the show, and it looks like, talking to people around here, that we'll be able to wrap this thing up later today.
That's what I was going to ask you. So do you feel confident that this could be wrapped up? President Trump obviously going to sign this once it passes, and the partial government shutdown can end potentially today.
Right, and I think that's what's going to happen. We have to go through two sets of rules. We have to pass what's called a rule, which lays out the rules that we have to pass the bill under, and later on we have to pass the bill. But obviously, insofar as you can be certain, with 218 Republicans, you can only afford to lose two, or afford to lose one. But we think right now everybody is on board, and we'll get this done by the end of the day.
How do you feel about the potential here for Republicans to vote for this, maybe Democrats to vote against it? Do you feel that there needs to be overall bipartisan support for whatever passes?
We're going to have, I think on the final passage today, I think a lot of Democrats are going to vote for it. They're not going to vote for what they call the rule, because traditionally that's a partisan vote. But I think at the end, it'll be a big bipartisan vote. I think, you're going to get maybe 280, 300 votes for this is my prediction.
When you talk about the government shutdown in general, right now, of course, we're talking about a partial government shutdown, but just months ago, we were dealing with a full government shutdown that went on for a record period of time. So based on what we're seeing here, what do you think needs to happen to prevent shutdowns like this?
Well, what you have to do is what they do frequently on a state level. If we don't get the budget done in time, we continue on with last year's budget with no increase. That way you really aren't disrupting people's lives. It wouldn't be that difficult of a thing. I think some of the Democrats are against it. I know Ron Johnson is pushing it very hard in the Senate, and I'm certainly supportive of doing something like that in the House. Just continue with last year's budget.
When we talk about immigration, that's obviously a sticking point here. We're talking about that 2-week extension for funding for DHS. What do you feel needs to happen coming up here in the next 2 weeks, as there is the potential that maybe a deal isn't reached for further funding?
Well, first of all, that's not going to be a disaster. President Trump determines what we have to do if we don't get done in time. He can always, for example, keep the military going, that sort of thing. And so it's not like the Border Patrol is going to shut down if we don't get that done on time. My major concern is that there'll be an overreaction to the tragic events of the last month where 2 people died. And they overreact and begin to let too many people in here. You've got to remember, right now, we have a higher percent of people in this country born abroad than any time in the last, I think, 150 years, 140 years anyway. So we do not have to panic and say we have to let many, many people here because of 2 isolated incidents that happened in January.
My last question here before I let you go. What is your message today to Democrats, to folks there on the other side of the aisle, as you go into this potential vote today and over the coming days, weeks, and even months?
Well, rather than focusing on trying to let everybody under the sun here, focus on the fact that we have over 800,000 people being sworn in as new citizens every year. Democrats, you don't have to let the whole world here. 800,000 a year is enough.
All right, Congressman Glenn Grothman, thank you so much for being here with us today. Anything we missed that you want to make sure to mention here before I let you go?
Just that, and I think you have to the public has to hold firm and understand. There may have been a couple isolated incidents, but we are letting so many people in this country already. We cannot go back to the days of even more people coming here without permanently changing our country for the worse.
All right. Congressman Grothman, thank you for being here. We definitely appreciate it. Again, I know you have a busy day, so we appreciate your time.
Well, glad you gave me your time.
All right, well, it is 8:20 on the East Coast and 5:20 on the West Coast. What you're looking at on the bottom right-hand side of your screen is the countdown clock that is started at midnight on Saturday morning or Friday night, depending how you look at it, at 12 a.m. Eastern time. Again, you can see it's been going here for 3 days, 8 hours, 20 minutes, and 23 seconds. Now, there is the potential here, according to House Speaker Mike Johnson, that we could actually see this all end today. The House would have to approve this, and then President Trump would have to sign it. And at that point, the partial government shutdown comes to an end. We'll keep you updated here and bring you to the House floor as there's likely to be discussion throughout the day. And cameras will be in the hallways there getting reaction from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle as the day progresses. Now, I do want to mention here that we reach out to lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats. We've reached out to Hakeem Jeffries, for instance, Senator Schumer. We did not hear back from their communications directors, but as you saw here, we heard back from Congressman Kiley and Congressman Grothman. As we get more reaction, you can watch it here live on LiveNOW from Fox.